the fear of going backwards was huge for me. Those first few years, it was like, I was so locked in for those first couple of years, not really knowing what I was doing, but I knew that I didn't want to go back there. And it was the fear that kept me going.
And welcome back, listeners, to another episode of the Unbreakable Podcast. Really excited about this one today. I've got my coach, Jay Magic Davies, here with us from over in Wales. Hey, Jay, how's it going?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it muchly. I know we did try and get this sorted a little while back, and then we got busy as hell as usual, and then we dived back in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
So,
and
I'm good.
I guess we should acknowledge the fact that at this point you're in prep right now, and this is the point when the 8-week out mark is generally when I start looking like my head's an orange on a toothpick, right? Like it's a giant little head and this little skinny neck. How you feeling? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. This it's been a rough couple of weeks just because my body's not moved like it usually moves. I think it's a lot to do with the timeline, just because we're working in a much shorter timeline than previously, whereas normally I would give myself 20 plus weeks till show day. And this year it's been a lot less, like 12 weeks, just because I'm always ready early.
Wow.
I'm always having to hold condition for a long time. And then by the time I get to show day, I'll normally throw a few more shows in. And then by the end when I'm dying. So
Yeah, that's tough. So, yeah, I mean, you and I were dealing with the same thing. And I think I just came to you and I was like, okay, let's just rip it off. Let's rip the fat off. What are we going to do? And I'll be very honest with you. I was prepared, but I was not prepared for pro fat.
well, you did say, like, can we do some crazy shit? So pro fats is always the way to go. Just because I know in the past when I've had that like sticky situation where the timeline is condensed and you're trying to get in the best possible spot, because not only are you trying to get to this time, you're also looking ahead to what's after that time. So we needed to kind of get the most bang for our buck in a short window of time before we jumped back into looking at next year.
Well, yeah. And I think that this is the thing that people really don't understand is how much depth. Like, I think that people generally feel like we're just meatheads. We don't really know much, but like the science behind bodybuilding is quite fascinating. And even the approach that we take as a result of it, like, I'm working with a transformation athlete. And so helping her and teaching her what this looks like is pretty powerful because she asks really great questions because it's her very first prep. Right. And, yesterday we were having a bit of a chat and she was like, well, so what's your end goal? Do you get asked that a lot? Like, what's your end game?
Yeah, I get the question, is your goal to be an IFBB pro? And it's a difficult one to answer because, I mean, if I was to get offered the chance to turn IFBB pro, am I going to turn it down? Of course, I'm going to want to turn IFBB pro. But ultimately, the goal after that, the Olympia is not the goal. Winning a pro show is not the goal because they're so far out of my scope. But it's about, the end goal. There is no end goal. It's just to kind of get as much out of it as we can in the time that we've got doing it.
I agree. And it's interesting because, I get asked all the time, right? If I'm going to go pro and this, that, and the other thing. And then, frankly, I'll be very honest with you. I think that the scene for women's bodybuilding right now is just so unhealthy. Like, to each their own. Like everyone's going to do what's going to be right for them. I have absolutely zero judgment for what anybody chooses to do. That's none of my business, what goes on behind closed doors. And the concern that I have is that bodybuilding would never give me what being an author and an executive give me, right? And so if I walk in and I've gone and I've done things that maybe compromise how I look or how I show up or what the perception that other people have of me, like, listen, I walk into a CEO's office and I've got a 5 o'clock shadow at 10 o'clock in the morning on my face. He's not going to look at me and be like, you look like you make really good decisions. I think I should hire you to help me with my company.
Yeah, it's
You
a
know?
difficult one. You're juggling two two sides of the coin there. Really, you've got
Yeah.
your professional aspect of your life, which obviously you need to be on point for that, and presentation and how you walk into those rooms is a massive part of it. And then obviously you've got the poison, the passion and poison side of your life, which is like
Yeah.
you're always on a tightrope.
You are. And it's the thing that I find really interesting too, though, is how much of a conversation starter it is, right? Like it never astounds me when I walk into a room and I have to wear like a little shawl or something over top of my arms, or I have to cover like I'm routinely instructed to put a top on. And I'm like, right,
Correct.
that's I forgot women aren't allowed to have shoulders and arms, and you know what I mean? And so when I go into these rooms, and I can remember I was on a construction work site and I was working out there during COVID. We were considered essential workers because we were doing a safety program. The horrible incident had taken place. And so they, brought us in every 2 weeks. We ran 3 classes a week, 2 days each. Like it was crazy. It was very, very, very crazy. But you always go into the trailer, the training trailer in the morning, and it's damp and cold and whatever. So you're covered up. And then by, act two, once you've gone and had a coffee and a break and whatever, the cover up comes off and people are like, oh, right. And and it's funny because I was actually on prep at that time. I did 2 COVID shows that year. And I can remember I literally one time actually was walking on the treadmill after my work shift. And thank God I was holding on. Like I wasn't holding on. I was kind of just hands on the thing. I literally fell asleep because I was getting up in the morning at 4:30. I was going to the gym, doing my first bout of cardio and training. Then I was going to the work site for 7:30, was working all day, then going to the gym, coming back, prepping food, doing all the things, right? So you're
Yeah.
on a construction site, you're dealing with high emotions. It's in COVID. So I'm like literally sharing a house with my business partner at the time. And I remember, so like there was that instance, but then there was another incident where, I found a quiet corner of the gym to do my posing practice. And I turned around and there was a man standing there holding his phone up, staring at me like this. And I saw him and he looked like Uncle Fester from the Addams Family. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, I was just so wiped out and I was just like, not today, Satan. And I went straight at him. Now, the funny side of this story is he was wearing like this bright yellow, like, I don't know, dad bod tank top, and he was wearing like the long basketball shorts, but he looked like Uncle Fester. He had the body of Uncle Fester. And then he had those weird like Automix shoes, like, the ones where you wear them and it looks like you have no calves.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like, I hate those shoes.
Space
I don't
boots.
like
Yeah.
them. Yeah, space boots. That's exactly it. So he has these yellow space boots that match his like little tank top. And I roll up on him and I am like, absolutely not. Cause I don't know about you. I before I started training really consistently at the same gym, like I get people taking photos of me, videos of me, depending on who I'm training with, things like that. And so I was like, no, I'm not doing this. And so I rolled up on him and he's got his phone and he's trying to delete it as fast as it's deleted, he says. And I go, no, open your deleted folder. And so I made him open his deleted folder and I leaned over and I went, delete. Yes. And I was just like, I was kind of like,
Yeah.
you kind of thing, right? So I went back to the job site the next morning and I have a group of soups and foremen in my class and it was day 2. And one of the guys, we do our safety moment and whatever, and we're getting into the content. And this guy goes, hey, before we get started, I have a question. And I said, yeah. He goes, did you have an experience at the gym
Oh
yesterday? And I was
no.
like, shit. I was like, yes, I did. And so it turned out this guy was a pipe fitter on my work site and he had
Oh,
gone in and
yeah.
had like a little like, oh, this did this and that. And I was just like, no, I would do it all over again. And I'd probably smack him with a shoe while I did it. Like, no.
Yeah. Did you actually bump into that guy while you were there? Did
I
you see him?
didn't. I didn't because he was frontline, right? And I was working with the leadership teams and foremen of all these different companies. It was a crazy job. Like there was 29 subs and 8 unions and it was really intense. So, you're dealing with all of this stuff and then you're having to deal with these schmucks and schmoes and you're just like, no, I'm not interested in this. So
Yeah.
sometimes the two worlds collide and it's very
Sometimes.
awkward when they do.
Yeah. It can be a fun conversation sometimes, but 9 times out of 10, they've already decided what they think of you before you actually get the conversation done, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like you possibly you can't be as smart as you are, Jay. I mean, look at the size of your delts.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're probably, because you're a female, they're probably intimidated as well
But yeah,
because
story
they
of my
probably
life.
feel inferior because they look like
Yeah.
Uncle Fester in a pair of space boots.
Yeah, that just screams I have really high confidence, doesn't it?
Yeah. If I ever look like Uncle Fester, please tell me.
I will absolutely tell you. Mrs. Magic and I will have a conversation.
I'm sure she'll tell me. She'll send the divorce papers through, I think, before she tells me. Yeah.
Well, so that kind of brings me to the first question that I have, right? Like when we think about your pathway, right? You're known as magic in the industry, and I love it when you post your throwbacks, right? You were a DJ, you've been in videography, you're a storyteller for other people. Like you help other people really see themselves as the world sees them. You help amplify their messages and things like that. But you're also a father. You've been just celebrated your 18-year anniversary. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Um, you have all these different things, but it's not like you might have had the vision to go here, but not all of this happened at one time.
No, there was never a vision to go here. I actually spoke about this to my client literally in the gym just before. Luke Collins from obviously the No Limits group.
Yeah.
I've just met up with him because he's close to a show now. So he was talking about it, and I was like, I never had the vision, or I never kind of saw myself ending up in this position because it was never really an interest, and it was never an interest or a passion before. Kind of just, I look at my life in chapters of a book, and they're kind of almost in 10-year segments right now. So we
Yeah.
had like, I mean, if we start the chapters from like 20, because before that I was just a child, right? So I was just doing what I was doing. And then like 20 to 30 was where the DJing was heavy. I was doing that a lot because music's always been a really big thing for me since I was like a child.
Hmm.
Particularly like hip hop and rap and things. So, and in the UK at that point, it was not really a big genre, and as a DJ from where I was from. So I think things that were always left field, like something a little bit different, I was always more drawn to those things.
Yeah.
So not only was I a DJ from like a local, like a small town, but I also DJed music, which was quite possibly at that time the smallest genre in the UK, because the American market had the hip hop and rap market like locked down.
Right.
But then I went into it and excelled pretty well. I got to a relatively high level with it. Did that for 10 years. And then towards the back end of that, I started looking at my life a little bit. You know, I was approaching 30 and I was like, I'm sick of not being in shape. I was fit because I played basketball. Again, basketball is not a UK sport. So again, it was something that was different. And I played basketball from the age of 14. So I was fit, but I was never really in shape. And I just said to myself, by the time I hit that 30th birthday, I want to be in the best shape of my life. So that's kind of where that was the catalyst for it all, really. And then, so I got in shape for that 30th birthday. At that time, YouTube started happening with YouTube channels and vlogs and all this stuff.
Right.
And that's when I picked up a camera first. I was just vlogging my own fitness journey. I was documenting it on a GoPro. Nothing serious, just having a little play about. Never had an interest in cameras. Started learning how to edit. And then off the back of that, I started getting booked for videography work because of my edits, which were, I'd kind of fallen into it. So obviously I was passionate about it. So I use this little phrase, passion takes you places, because, you know, the music love that I had took me with the DJing, the passion for fitness, I guess, and creating things. I kind of think that comes off the back of DJing, the creative aspect of it, you know, creating videos. That then took me and became Magic Eye Media, was infamously probably the biggest kind of media videography supplier for the UK in terms of the bodybuilding industry and fitness industry. And that's been for the last, I'd say 10 to 12 years. And then as I and around circles of, the higher level bodybuilders, I started sponging off them and learning and having a little go myself. And then obviously my own bodybuilding kind of took over, and the coaching started coming into play because I was in shape, and naturally people want to know what you're doing so that you start giving diet advice. And so I've always coached in the background, probably like 10 clients maximum, because Magic Eye Media was so busy. And then in the last 2 to 3 years, I've really started looking at my next chapter of life, because I hit the big 40. And then that's when I thought, you know what, I can't be the camera guy for the rest of my life. I need the next thing. And what is the passion? And the passion is bodybuilding, fitness, and not just taking people to stage, but just those transformation stories are just as rewarding. So that is where it's kind of placed me now. And as you probably notice yourself, I've gone heavy on the coaching now. It's the main thing. That's all I do. So, and that's where we've ended up. We're on chapter 3 of the book at the minute, I guess.
Yeah. That's really powerful too, because I mean, as you think about, like, there's two things that come to mind that I want you to touch a little bit on. I mean, the first piece is you've meandered through all of these different places. You are known to be somebody who is trusted by some of the largest names in UK bodybuilding. I would argue to suggest that, as you're training legs with them, doing private interviews, helping them go to clinics to inspire competitors to bring their best out. I mean, we're talking, you've got Jordan Peters, Samson Dowda. Who was that one guy you did legs with? You did, and he's a rough guy, man. You guys did legs, and then you did an interview with him on your podcast. Danny, maybe?
Oh, Dan
No.
McNabb.
Yeah, Dan McNabb. Yeah. That was a great conversation. I must have listened to it 3 times. Like, I really took so much from that.
I'm not sure how we were able to hold down an interview after training legs, I'll be honest, because that was
you guys,
a stupid idea.
Yeah, you guys were both pretty ill during the conversation, especially as shit was settling down at the beginning. You were off season. Let's just say that, right? And yeah. So when you think about all of that, there's 2 things that kind of happen. Number 1, I think, is, growing and, making sure that Mrs. Magic is a part of this. Carla is, she's your ride or die. There's no doubt about it. You two you go to a show, Carla's there with you. She's an extra set of hands for competitors. Like, she's in our chat. Like, she's amazing. And then, of course, you also have your child, right? Or you just have the one daughter, right?
So I've got my daughter, who is biologically my daughter, and I've got a stepson who was 2 years old when I met Carla, and he's like my best mate now. He's 24 years of age. He still lives here. He does need to move out and get his own place, but he still lives with us. But yeah, I got two children, technically. Just one of them's a little bit older.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, you're growing and you're doing all of these things, and you're chumming around with some of the biggest names in UK bodybuilding, and arguably in some cases in bodybuilding in the world, right? Like, I mean, some of the guys that you're hanging out with are very, very well known. They set the tone for how other people choose to show up, because they know that there's that competitive spirit. So when you think about those relationships and what they've done to fuel you to become the best version of yourself, what are some of the pieces that gave you the fortitude to just kind of stand and continue to drive forward?
Jordan, like you mentioned, Jordan Peters there, and he is definitely going to be the main piece to the puzzle. If we were to look at where I am now as a big puzzle, the centerpiece would probably be Jordan. And that's just because he, not only from a business aspect with Magic Eye Media, because he entrusted me to do the work for his, obviously, business. And then that led on to me becoming one of the busiest videographers in the UK. So there was a snowball effect from doing that initial work for Jordan. So I was able to take something that was very, at that time I wasn't super busy. I was picking up shoots, but I wasn't really, really busy. And then that unlocked a lot of doors and put me in a lot of rooms from just being associated with that brand, because, hands down in the UK, it's the company. And that's not me being biased because I'm such a big part of it now, being an athlete, but just it has, if you think about UK bodybuilding, I think Trained by JP sits firmly on the top of that mountain.
Totally. Totally.
And then throughout the years, obviously, me and Jordan have become closer outside of work. There's other conversations. He was always asking about, my own bodybuilding, and he knew I trained, which I did train at that time. But it's when you're around people like that are putting that amount of work ethic into not just their bodybuilding, but also building one of the biggest brands in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You see the work that's going in, and you see that, like, you might say you want to achieve these things, but you really have to put the work in. And Jordan is like something that I've just, like I said, I've sponged off him. And then obviously the athlete team as well, from filming them. They're all, the whole team is from a similar kind of mindset in terms of work ethic. It's work is like the sole thing that they represent. And I quickly found out that is like, the more you put into something, the more you're going to get out of it. And that has been something that has continually happened with my bodybuilding. I never thought like I'd be competing. I never thought I'd step on stage from that. It was just something I enjoyed doing. I wanted to improve my physique. But yeah, here we are. I guess it's just something that's just, again, snowballed off the back of just watching and absorbing what they do.
Yeah. And they're great examples. I remember when I was over there, and I was in Cheltenham when we got together and we did legs. I did see JP the one day, and I was just, it's very few and far between where I feel drawn to somebody or a little bit, I wouldn't say starstruck, because that's not who I am as a person. But it's just like, because I used to subscribe to JP's content, right? So all the stuff that you guys used to put on the app and stuff like that, like that was a really big thing for me, because I was working with Dr. Scott Stevenson, and he wasn't working with anybody at the time, but he was writing Be Your Own Bodybuilding Coach at the time, and he decided to take me on as a female competitor. I was his only competitor. We worked very quietly together, and he fed me all this stuff. And so as I started getting more into the fact that it's less about, I think bodybuilding particularly is less about just showing up and going to the gym and doing the thing. Like, you have to understand what it is that you're trying to do. You have to try and understand the science behind it. To be truly competitive and successful in this industry, you have to be tuned into it. Like, this is not a passive exercise, right?
No.
And so for me, when I was there, I was, and me, like, I'm a very solitude trainer. Like, I go in, I get my shit done. I love to get into the gym and get filthy under the weights, right? But it was just like, I saw him and I was like, oh my God, like, he is as wide as he is tall. The man is just like, he goes out of the frame. And it's just that, to me, the level of devotion and dedication to the craft and the practice, to prioritize it to the point where it literally becomes your entire life's purpose is to help other people get better, to provide space for people, to provide nutrition, to provide education. Like, that's really powerful.
Yeah, it is. He's got a certain aura about him. When he's in the room, he doesn't say anything.
No.
You'll be lucky if you get a nod. Like when I've been in the gym, like, bearing in mind, me and Jordan, I'd class Jordan as one of my best friends now, because I will, if I need to lean in on him, I know he's there. Like, he was texting me. This is crazy, right? So last night we were texting, and I woke up to a text off him this morning, and I'm not sure if he'd want me to kind of share this really, but he's been in the industry so long. You can imagine people are kind of burnt out with certain aspects of where bodybuilding and the industry is now, right?
Yes.
He's basically said that he is pretty burnt out. That's why he's not on social media anymore. But he's basically said that the unfinished part for him is seeing me get my pro card and do some pro shows, and also SAS as well. And he said that'll be a really nice ending to all this for him. And I woke up to that text this morning at like 4 a.m. So you can imagine how cardio went. Cardio was a breeze this morning because I was fueled. So And that's the kind of relationship me and Jordan have got now. But if we were in the gym at the same time, what I was getting to is we won't speak. I won't even acknowledge
Mm-mm.
him because I know he's in work mode. He's in there to train, and
Totally.
we'll normally text on the way. Like when I'm driving home, he'll either text me first to say, "Hope you had a good session," or I'll text him because I know when he's in the gym, that's his time. He's locked in. So yeah, that aura is definitely something that people need to witness. And I guess for me, you said you were watching the member site content.
Hmm.
Imagine how it was for me being someone that was aspiring to be a bodybuilder, actually there in the room, witnessing that like firsthand. And I think intensity, that's where I had like an upper hand on everyone. I think because I was in the room witnessing intensity firsthand, I
Hmm.
was there. So I think I was able to apply that to my own training and my own process a lot easier than someone watching it through a phone or a screen, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and I think those are the relationships that form you, but they also, and I think this is something, Jay, that we might not, as people who are always sponges and learning from other people and bringing things. I think the ability for us to truly understand the impact that we have on other people as well, right? Relationships like that aren't one sided, right? The kind, warm text that you receive is simply because of the fact that you continue to show up. Like I say it quite frequently is, the mighty oak is just a nut that stood its ground.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. I love that.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. So let's shift gears a little bit over into some listener questions. I've got a couple of questions, and I think this first one is really, really a great one because it's something that you and I have both kind of experienced over the past couple of weeks. And this listener is, I did go out and ask for a couple of people to give me a couple of questions, some bodybuilding, some not. But this one I think can translate between bodybuilding and life. Right. Given where you've been. So I've been training for a couple of years and I'm starting to wonder if I have what it takes. Every time I open Instagram, death to Instagram, uh,
Yeah.
someone looks bigger, leaner, or further ahead than me. How do you know the difference between someone who has reached their ceiling and someone who just hasn't been in the game long enough? Because this is a long game, right? And so you could arguably apply, like when you think about this question, apply it to the bodybuilding world, but also apply it to the lens of the life that you've led. You're chapter 3 now. You didn't get to chapter 3 by just cracking the book open, right? So
Yeah. I think personally, I think there is no ceiling, first of all. Like, there's absolutely no
I agree.
ceiling because, like, for me, with my bodybuilding, so going back 3 years ago, I think it was, it'll be 3 years this year, I think. So I got really ill, ended up in hospital, lost 38 pounds in 12 days.
Jeez.
Bear in mind, this was just the start of my competing kind of career, if you want to call it that. So I done like 2 shows at this point, got really ill. It was in my second off season. And I was sat in that hospital bed for like 12 days and I was looking at the ceiling because I couldn't get out of bed. And I was like, I am done. And, I am done with bodybuilding. I'm not prepared to risk my health anymore. Just not that the reason I wasn't in hospital due to bodybuilding. It had no kind of tie-in. It was food poisoning that had got really severe and it ended up being suspected sepsis. So I was in a
Jesus.
bad way.
Yeah.
That moment of me not being able to live a normal life because I was stuck in a hospital bed, I knew sometimes, with bodybuilding, there are risks and I wasn't prepared to take any more risks. So I quit bodybuilding that year and I lasted 10 weeks. And throughout that 10 weeks, I got more miserable and could not talk. I could not. Carla would ask me, how do I feel, about my physique? Because I wasn't obviously training. I wasn't taking anything anymore. And I couldn't actually talk to her because I would cry. I literally could not speak about it. And then it got to a point where it was around Christmas time and I met up with some friends Christmas time, went out for a few drinks. The conversation came up about bodybuilding. They were asking me about it. And then I started crying in the middle of like a club, right? And I was like, well, I'm done with this. I'm getting back to it. And that moment was, so say I had hit my ceiling at that point when I was in hospital just before that.
Yeah.
When I came back from being ill, it's like I went into sixth gear. So I went like I cracked through my ceiling, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
and then I did another season, and then another season, and everything. Each year, your ceiling gets higher, or the hurdle. People will say there'll be walls or blocks in their way, and it's not about like trying to get through them. You just fucking go
Mm-hmm.
over it, or you go around it. You find a way.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
you're only done. You determine your ceiling when you're done.
Mm-hmm.
The
Well,
progress doesn't stop. It stops when you stop.
Exactly. And we say it on this podcast all the time, comparison is the thief of joy. And I mean, it's easy to say that, but it's very hard to live that inside of a sport where all
Very.
we do is get compared to somebody else, right? I mean, like I remember my very first I had a moment very similar to that, although I wasn't ill. I had a moment where, I went to a national show and it was kind of post COVID. So it was like December of 2021. So we were back under some draconian um, different mandates and things like that from the government. And it was, honest to God, it was the worst competition I have ever done in my life. Anybody who asks me about that particular pro qualifier, I don't ever slam someone for how they run their business, but I will be very vocal about what I will and won't endorse because I vote with my money. And so I was there and I was 6 out of 6. I looked the best I've ever looked, but you looking the best you've ever looked doesn't mean that somebody else isn't looking their best. Like you don't know who's going to show up. And that's the hard part. That's the part that gets into your head. But I went in and there was this lady. Oh my gosh, she had done steroid to the point where all of her hair had fallen out. She had different wigs between the morning and the evening. She had vascularity in her traps that I have never seen in men. Like
Yeah.
it was bananas. And I was like, okay, so I kind of figured like, well, I might place in the top 5 if I'm lucky. And there was only 6 of us, but for female bodybuilding, that's a lot. And
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
we're seeing in Canada particularly is they don't award a pro card to a national qualifier if you have less than 5 athletes in the division. And that's not wrong, but the problem is for my division, that means that we're just not handing out pro cards. So we have to go and fail in Canada, and then we have to go to the US at one of their shows where they just hand them out like, popcorn at a movie.
Yeah.
So long story long, I ended up placing 6th of 6. I did the long walk of shame off. I mean, look the best I did, but in comparison to these other women who are willing to cross thresholds, I'm not. I just look like a little skinny bag of antlers. And so I was really disappointed. Um, I was very sad. And I questioned myself. I was like, what am I actually doing with my time? Like, you invest 5 to 6 hours a day into this process when you're in prep. When you're not in prep, it's still 4 to 5 hours a day, depending on where you're sitting and how you're training and what you're eating and whether you're on plan or not. Like, this is a time consuming passion. And I
Yeah.
can remember having a debrief with Matt and I cried and I just said like, maybe I'm just not made for this. Right. And it literally, like, it took me, I would say, months actually to come back from that. And it was the desire to train was not there. The desire to eat appropriately was not there. I didn't even want to eat. Like, it wasn't that I wanted, my previous life habits were I would go and I would just drown my sorrows with snacks. Whereas this new phase of where I was just like, well, I just won't eat. Right. So I
Yeah.
went
Yeah.
into this self-depreciating mode of, pulling myself out of the industry. And it's interesting because it's not like I was waiting for somebody to say, no, no, we really want you to come back. No, no, you can really do this. Like, you have to believe it because nobody's
Yeah.
going to do that. Right.
No.
But, you know, it just, it's so interesting to find that dynamic where you can find your joy and find the balance in how do you want to participate. Like, I had a friend who said to me, you can still bodybuild, you just don't need to compete. And I was like, I guess, but so it's a really, really interesting dynamic. But yeah, I almost left the industry entirely. But my biggest fear actually was reversing and going back into the person that I was when I was 260 pounds. That was what scared me the most. Is leaving everything behind, because the lessons that we've learned going through this are powerful,
Oh
right?
yeah, massively. Yeah, massively. I think yeah, that fear of going backwards.
Hmm.
I mean, if I was to break it down to a reason why I'm still in it now, is probably because the first couple of years of being in shape. I love it, air commas. It's like what your daughter does, isn't it? When you with the trainers, I think. Um,
Yeah.
the the fear of going backwards was huge for me. Those first few years, it was like I was so locked in for those first couple of years, not really knowing what I was doing, but I knew that I didn't want to go back there, and it was the fear that kept me going. And I think fear
Yeah.
is a
It's
I think fear is a big driver as well. Sorry to cut you off, but
no,
even
no,
in
please.
business, you know, business, the fear of falling off, with like Magic Eye Media, there was so many videographers, obviously social media, YouTube, all these things were getting more popular. There was new videographers coming up. So I had to be on my A game constantly because the fear of me reaching the mountaintop and then going back down the other side when all these other guys are kind of coming up and I'm just fading away as the old guy,
Yeah.
which is ultimately why I've kind of walked away from it, because I didn't want to be an old guy with a camera and a backpack running around after a bodybuilder filming what he's eating in a day. There's only so
Yeah.
long you can do that. Yeah,
Perspective,
the
right?
fear of that is the fear is a good thing, but only when it's used in the right way.
Hmm. Yeah. We had just had a guest on a couple of weeks ago. His name is Richard Walsh, and he talked about how his job had become his identity. Right. And I think that that's something, like, when we get so passionate into things, that's a part of like, that's part of what I was fearing, is like, who do I become in this giant gap if I were to walk away from bodybuilding? Like, who am I? And it's cool because in the past, like while I was on vacation, you can well imagine I didn't work, but I definitely worked on Unbreakable stuff. Um, and one of the things that I started is a series we're going to be launching. I think we're launching it this week, or maybe we launched it last week, depending on when this airs. And it's called Become. And what it is it's a memoir, a visual memoir of bodybuilding. And so there's lots of different pictures. There's me as, fat with an F, and then there's fat with a PH, and, all these different things. But it's the lessons that you learn inside of bodybuilding, because bodybuilding is one of the most, if you're paying attention and if you're not just doing it for the likes, and you're not just doing it for the trophies, here, what Become is intended to do is it's intended to kind of blend the Unbreakable brand together with the bodybuilding experience, because it's such a huge part of who I am as a person, but not the exterior identity. It's what bodybuilding did for me mentally and emotionally. And so it's a visual of pictures of me looking any kind of way, right? So from the start, and I should actually send you, I think I might have actually sent you a picture, but there was one of me, my very first check-in picture. I'm wearing so much clothing. That it's crazy. Like, you can kind of see my traps and my biceps, and that was it.
Yeah,
But then, I go in, and some of the stories are things like my very first bikini. I made her add extra material because she was like, I came and she's like, "You're going to get marked down for that." And I was like, "Listen, sis, you and I both know I'm not winning this." Right. And, that show, Jay, I came off of stage and I was 9 of 9, as one would expect. And, I had a message in my DMs on Twitter from somebody saying, "You had no business being on that stage."
no, no way.
Crazy, right? So
Yeah,
so when I think about that, it's like, bodybuilding is a vehicle for learning who you want to be and becoming the person that you want to be, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah. You develop that mental fortitude for dealing with other situations as well, whatever gets thrown at you. Even just managing, like, you're obviously busy flying all over the world. I mean, could a regular person do that without having that mental fortitude that you have developed through bodybuilding? I'm not too sure. Being as regimented as you are. Same with myself. When I've done these crazy trips on prep last year, you probably witnessed a few of them on my YouTube and stuff. It was
Yeah.
carnage. And even now, looking back at it, I'm like, how did I do that? Feels
Yeah,
like a blur, but you just do it because that's what bodybuilding teaches us. We just dig our heels in and get it done.
absolutely. So, if as we wind down here, I'm just so delighted, and I just appreciate you being here so much. I know that times are busy for you, especially as you are in the throes of prep. But if you could leave listeners with one magicism, something that they can take with them into their day to become or be the person that they want to be, regardless of what their interests are, what would it be? What's your dad advice?
Dad advice. You're putting
Coach
me in the
advice?
you're putting me in the old bracket there. um, I guess like if we, I know obviously I'm in the bodybuilding realm and the coaching seat now, but if you look at all the things that I've done throughout my life with the very different avenues, I used to get a lot of people looking a certain way at me, like because it was so different. But like I said, because it was a passion of mine, like find your passion and run with it and put everything into that passion. Don't worry about what other people are thinking and saying about you. Like that message that you had on Twitter. If you would let that get you, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing today. So, if you've got a passion, go after it. Make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Don't try and live through someone else's passion as well. Don't be influenced just because there's a lot of people out there that I think now with social media, a lot of people want to be a part of bodybuilding, want to be a
Yeah.
part of what we're all doing and seeing and all the stars and shiny things that bodybuilding presents on social media. But when they actually get down to it and have to do the hard stuff, they realize it's not all what it seems to be on Instagram, and it's a
Hmm.
lot fucking harder than what it's perceived to be. So make sure that what you're doing is what you want to do, not what others are actually doing.
I think that's so profound considering how much you do see on social media, and the nonsense that people try and sell you on there is just astronomical. Again, comparison is the thief of joy. If you want to have a joyful life, do whatever stirs your soul. I
Absolutely.
tell people every day I do this wonderful thing every single day. It's called whatever the fuck I want. And I love it.
Yeah.
Why not? You get one opportunity at this life. Why would you give it and become some corporate slave or do what somebody else thinks your life path should be?
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
well,
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, Jay, if people want to get in touch with you, if they want to ask you questions about what they've heard in this podcast, if they're interested in working together with you, inquiring about your coaching services and some of the other things that you might have to offer, how can they get in touch with you?
Instagram's probably the easiest place. I'm very active. So it's Jay Davis _ no limits on Instagram. And then the YouTube is Jay Davis. If you type in Jay Davis, I should pop up, or Jay Davis _ UK. And then I guess the other ones would be the coaching pages, which is just No Limits Online Coaching as well. So any of those, I'll be there waiting and ready to
Fantastic,
answer.
man. Wonderful. We'll also drop those down in the show notes. And particularly, I'd love to just redirect people to your YouTube channel because there is just a lot of information there. And, listeners, what I will also say to you is that while this appears to be a bodybuilding show and while it looks that, Jay's content is all bodybuilding, it's not. There's a lot of gems inside of the conversations that he has with the Dans of the world, with the JPs of the world, with the Samsons of the world, and with the other guys that he sits around the table with. Yeah, there's a lot of bodybuilding talk, but there's also a lot of stuff that you can take away, lift and shift into your own life to become the person that you want to be. So, Jay, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us and just sharing the good word. Hopefully, we'll be able to have you back again sometime soon.
Yeah, anytime. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And listeners, remember, protect your peace, chase your dreams, and stay unbreakable.